Hello ladies and gentlemen, this is Blue Maxima, and I'm here checking out the Vasara collection. People have been waiting for this one for a while. It's always seemed to be a question that shows up on r/Vita, and well, you'll be happy to know by the time you see this video, you'll be able to go buy it. So that's nice. Unrelated, I had the weirdest bug I've ever seen on a Vita before. Just as I was turning the Vita on to actually record this video, I turned it on, hooked up all the cables and stuff, and when I went to go and hit the PlayStation button in order to get the screen to come on, all it did was show up a random pattern of red, green, and blue dots on the screen. I had to hold the power button to turn it off and then turn it back on again, and it was fine. I've never heard of that happening before, but, well, there you go. I don't know if that's a good or a bad sign, but considering that this is a scrolling shooter and I tend to suck at them recently, it's probably going to be a bad one. So, for those of you who don't know, Vasara is a, well, I would call it a series, but at the same time it's not. It's really a duology of scrolling shooters. Vasara 1 came out in '99 and Vasara 2 came out in 2000, I think. And that's pretty much all there is to it. The developers actually shut down in the year 2001 because apparently what they put out before Vasara wasn't particularly great, and Vasara wasn't enough to save them. So, yeah, that's a shame, really, because the games are decent. It would have been neat to see where they went from here. Vasara 1 and 2 are actually pretty similar games on the whole. Vasara 2 is definitely the better title, so I think we're going to start there. But Vasara 1 is actually very similar in gameplay, so if we don't end up going back to that, don't worry, you won't be missing very much. So we're going to pick Vasara 2. Now, as I said, this game is a scrolling shooter, but there is also something else about it. It's a vertical scrolling shooter, so we have to work in a tiny ass monitor. This is honestly kind of a problem if you don't have great eyesight, like me. Especially there, God, like, thank God I wasn't playing the game in tape mode. Probably would have had a seizure. But yes, the game is in a very tiny viewport from the very beginning, and it can be kind of hard to deal with. I'll be perfectly honest with you on that one. So if you hit the select button, you can change a few things, like you can turn it from coin play to free play, make it vertical for tape mode, which is actually kind of neat, change how many credits you get per coin, the overall difficulty. I've been playing on easy, and it's definitely not giving me an easy time. Your lives, your Vasara stock, which is basically like your bombs, game voice, demo sounds, and English subtitles, which are all relatively obvious options. So, you can play this game in vertical tape mode, which does pretty much exactly what it says it does. It just rotates the game and requires you to hold your Vita a specific way. I've never been able to do that, so that's kind of just, whoops. Whoop, I went back to the menu. That was dumb of me. Don't worry, it won't take as long to get back to where we were. Actually pretty quick to get back to the menu in comparison to other collections like this that I remember, nevertheless. So we just hit, if we just hit the L button, it'll add credits for us, and then we can just hit start. So, in Vasara 2, you can pick a rank, difficult or easy, for different stage lengths. And you've also got different characters you can pick. This also applies to Vasara 1. Basically, it just changes their attack patterns and overall speed, for the most part. Also, this guy is something you can only unlock by putting in a cheat code, but you can find that cheat code online pretty easily. We're just going to pick one and go, honestly. As I said, there's really not that much difference between them. Whoop, I just hit the Vasara button instead of the fire button. That's not great. Alright, so, you get two buttons in this game. Very easy to understand what they do. The X button is your fire button, and you can also hold down the X button to charge up a melee attack. When you charge that melee attack, for a moment you will become invulnerable, but like for half a moment, but then you have to let go of the X button to fire off the melee attack. The melee attack will... Jesus. The melee attack will deflect most bullets, not all bullets, but it will deflect most bullets. And as you can see, even on the easy difficulty, there are tons of bullets. Thankfully in this game you do have a relatively small collision window, but it's still not great. It's really? It's still not fuck me. I said it wasn't easy. I wasn't kidding. Imagine on hard difficulty, which I'm going to have to show at some point, aren't I? But yes, the melee attack does deflect bullets, and you will need to, because there are tons of bullets. And I gotta say, unless you are intensely good at the game, it's going to be next to impossible to know exactly when you're gonna want to pull out the sword and exactly when you're gonna keep firing the bullets, because the charge time on the sword is kind of ridiculous. As in, it takes ages, it makes you slower, and you can't fire any bullets while you're doing that. While you're charging up your sword attack. So, you're basically defenseless? And I mean, when you've got giant bullet patterns like this, you find yourself just thinking, what the fuck am I supposed to do here? Am I seriously expected to deflect all of these bullets? Or am I seriously expected to dodge all of these bullets? But I'm not going to say it's impossible, because as far as I can tell, they've never given me a bullet pattern that's outright impossible to deal with in this game. It's just the patterns are so ridiculous, and the overall difficulty curve in learning how to use the sword is so high that I find myself just being completely and utterly unable to make it work. I mean, Jesus, I'm doing worse than the first time I played this stage, but then again, I am playing on a surprisingly large ship. But also, it serves to mention the problem I was talking about with the size of the overall playfield when you're playing in vertical mode, because there are tiny bullets, there are slightly less tiny bullets, and there are huge bullets. Seeing all of them merge together in a moving background like this while you're trying to deal with everything else on screen, well, it's a fucking nightmare. Just to say the least, it's an absolute clusterfuck. There are a couple of things working for you in this situation, though. Mainly that you have the ability to run into any enemy that you like without getting killed, which is unusual for a scrolling shooter. Actually kind of neat, if I'm being honest. But the downside to that, of course, is if you run into an enemy, you'll bounce off them, basically. You'll bounce off them like a bloody physics game on the internet. So you'll end up going right back into the bullet you were trying to avoid by running into the enemy in the first place. So yeah, you can't rely on that. And you do also have your Vasara attack. In the first game, this is just your traditional bomb attack. But in Vasara 2, they've changed it a little bit. To the point where it's basically a really powered up version of your sword attack. In order to get your Vasara meter filled up, you need to kill enemies and collect the gems that are falling from their body, which is incredibly hard to do. Like, holy shit, it can be really hard to be trying to get all the gems while you're trying to avoid all the bullets and potentially trying to deflect them using your sword. Like that. If I knew this boss a little better, I would have known right there that would have been the perfect point to pull out the sword, right? I'm not saying it's impossible, I'm just saying it's fucking hard. Like, this game will not hold your hand. This game is not Darius Burst, where it's like, okay, we're gonna give you a little bit of a chance to get used to things before we really try to sodomize you. No, this game goes straight to the sodomy. It's lovely. Thankfully, I am playing on... Well, let me try it again. You do get all your Vasara attacks back when you die, but it's really not much of a compensation. If I was even remotely competent, I'd be using all 3 before I end up dying, and it wouldn't take me very long to fucking use all of them and then die again anyway. I fully admit that I'm thoroughly incompetent at it. Like, I willingly admit that I am incredibly bad at Vasara 1 and 2 in comparison to someone who probably knows what the fuck they're doing. The game does give you unlimited continues as long as you keep putting credits in via the L button, but at the same time they kind of come back and subvert your expectations, as one hack filmmaker would say. In that, in order to successfully beat the last stage, you're not allowed to continue. As in, if you die on the last stage, you'll be put right back into the beginning of the stage. They won't let you continue where you lost all your lives. That's it. You're done. You go back to the very beginning. The only stage in the game that does this, it also happens on Vasara 1, so I'm pretty sure you can guess by my current performance whether or not I was able to actually pull it off. I was not. So, I've said it before and I'll say it again. This is definitely not a scrolling shooter for beginners. Not a chance. Like, holy hell. If you gave this to me back before I played Darius Burst, I would have put it down just out of frustration 5 minutes in. Even on easy difficulty. Like, the game starts out on normal difficulty. And it's even harder. And it's got a hard and hardest. It's insane. Well, not really insane. I've seen worse games, but still, for fucking 2000, this would have been a hell of a challenge. There are some other mechanics going on as well, like in Vasara 2 especially. They definitely upped the underlying mechanics thing going on a bit. The main one is how the game has something... Wow, was not expecting that. The first thing is how there's a bunch of sub-bosses on every level. Now, in Vasara 1 it was mainly just a mid-boss, but in Vasara 2 they've made it so that there's like 5 or 6 mini-bosses before you go up against the actual boss of the level. And you have to try and beat them in order to get the best score possible, obviously. And they're constantly flooding in. It's very easy to let them go. It's not something that you have to beat before they put you up against the final boss of the area. So if you want to be doing the best that you possibly can do, you'll have a bunch of sub-bosses to take out. See, I missed 3 there on that stage, and apparently I did wonderful, which is weird, but okay. There are also some other weird mechanics. Sometimes when you kill an enemy, I haven't quite figured out what exactly does this yet, but sometimes when you kill an enemy, a little bloody spatter of a banner will appear in front of their corpse. Like, see those banners there? Now, from what I've read on the internet, this is apparently something to do with using your melee attack to kill people, but it doesn't appear every time I use a melee attack. It's weird, but when you kill them, you can chain kills off the enemies that have those banners. And you can use that to get more points, somehow. Like, I'm not entirely sure what the deal is with them. But there is apparently some score multiplying business that you can do. But unfortunately, this game doesn't include anything along the lines of, it doesn't include anything along the lines of, like, a sort of tutorial to teach you how these systems actually work. So even after, like, an hour of playing, because this system is in Vasara 1 as well, and as far as I can tell, it's not really changed. But as far as I can tell, it's the same system. But I've got no idea what to bloody do with it. I don't know if it's got anything to do with me just chaining attacks off regular enemies, or if it's got something to do with me. It's just, yeah, I got nothing on this one. It's also weird that this game has English subtitles, mainly because the original Japanese were... How the fuck did I get through that bullet pattern without dying? Okay. That was at least slightly efficient use of my sword deflections there. That's what it looks like when someone even remotely competent plays. Damn it. I think we're just going to let the timer count down and go back to Vasara 1 at this point. Made enough of an ass of myself on Vasara 2. You do get a high score screen, but as far as I'm aware, there's no, As far as I'm aware, there's no online high scoreboards, it's just the local stuff. Which is fine, really. So if we head back to the menu, we can go and play Vasara 1. There are some other neat features this port has. It does work on PlayStation TV, and you can play 2-player with it. So the whole thing in the top right that's like, oh, press start, player 2, it's not just for show. We'll just skip the intro if we can. There we go. There are 3 characters this time, and they give you a rough idea of what they all do here, which is kind of nice. I think we'll go with the middle of the road. The story in these games are all based around ancient Japanese conflicts. Basically, it's famous people going to try and take out the overlords of the day. Pretty basic stuff. And of course, it's a scroll and shooter, so it's not going to be that impressive. I'm pretty sure the game is still on easy difficulty, but just for the... No, it's not. It's actually on normal this time. Okay, so... Oh, fuck. I pressed menu again. God damn it. Alright, we're back roughly to where I was. That was dumb of me. So yeah, in this game, the mechanics are slightly different. You have bombs that you can use, and you also have... Oh no, you have bombs you can use, and you unlock them via filling up the meter in the top left there. There's also only a mid-boss and an end-boss. There's no 6 bosses to have to worry about in every single stage. And the bomb is actually a completely different attack in this one. It's not like the, It's not like Vasara 2, where your bomb is your attack, although in this game, you do actually charge up... I believe you actually charge up a more powerful sword attack and use that instead. It's a little strange, but it works. The games are about as, like, hard as each other. As far as I can tell, there isn't any particularly massive difficulty spike between the two games. At least on their easy modes. I'm not going to claim to know anything about their hardest modes, but yeah. The games look good too. Like, I mean, they do look like a game from the 2000s, sure, but they still look pretty nice. The backgrounds are good. The massive mechs that they fly around are great. And the game maintains a pretty consistent performance. So now that I've filled up my Vasara meter, if I throw out my sword attack, it does that. It's a little bit weird playing Vasara 2 when you've basically only got your sword attack to work with for the most part. And then you just your Vasara attack that you charge up, and then in this game you've got not only your separate Vasara attack, but you've also got bombs. And as I said before, you can't reach the true final stage on either of these games. Unless you manage to get through on 1 credit. Good fucking luck, son. So it kind of looks like chains, doesn't it? Like, that seems to be what causes those banners to get bloodier, because I think bloodier banners mean more kills and also mean more points at the end of the stage, but at least I'm pretty sure that's what I read. And it seems to be that way. Just a little hard to figure out what exactly triggers them. Didn't mean to throw out my Vasara attack there. That's gonna suck when I get to the boss. God damn it, I danced around that for 5 fucking seconds and I still went headfirst into it. Because I'm a retard. Good lord. But really, just... it's hard. Like, probably something I shouldn't be playing at my skill level, don't get me wrong. That doesn't make it a bad game, though. It's not unfairly hard, it's just, like, you really have to work at it. And the port itself is absolutely fine. There is nothing wrong with the port of Vasara to the Vita. In fact, the fact that you get the 2-player mode, if you get it on the PlayStation TV, is kind of nuts. Like, it's 2019, I'm amazed people haven't forgotten the PlayStation TV already. I feel bad for PlayStation TV owners for saying that. This is coming from someone who owns like 4 Vitas. But yeah, look, I got nothing wrong with it. It's a competent shooter. It's not the best I've ever played, but the whole using your sword to deflect bullets idea, the whole Japanese theme of it, and the overall difficulty means that at least give you some replay value, and considering you get both games, and both of them are considered cult classics in shooters as far as I'm aware. So, it's neat that it's a thing, don't get me wrong. It's just definitely something you should probably avoid if you aren't intensely experienced in these kinds of games. Because I've played a fair few of these kinds of games and I'm getting my shit handed to me left, right, and center. So, yeah. If you don't want to end up in a position where you, if you don't want to end up in a position where you're getting your ass kicked regularly and you've never played a scrolling shooter before, you should probably avoid it like the plague. But if you have a fair amount of experience in this genre, it's not that hard to recommend. It's a pretty good game. And if you're good at it, you'll probably have a much better time at it than I did. So yeah, that was a look at the Vasara collection. If you're good at shooters, pick it up. It's probably worth your time, and they've done a pretty good job on the port. This has been Blue Maxima, and I will see you all next time.